There are two types of anxiety that people like me know all too well. The anxiety I had before I ever used drugs or alcohol, and the anxiety I had after I quit. The truth is, they are nothing alike. Before I started using, anxiety felt like a shadow, something I didn't really understand. But after I quit, anxiety became a storm loud, violent, and absolutely impossible to ignore. Today, I want to talk about both. So many people think that anxiety just comes from addiction. But for many of us, anxiety is the reason we started using in the first place. And when you quit, that anxiety doesn't just vanish. It transforms, it evolves, it turns into something completely different. This video is personal, it's painful, and it's honest. But if you're struggling before you've even started using, or if you're struggling after quitting, or if you're just confused about why your anxiety has changed so much, then this is your story too. Before I ever touched anything, I was already drowning. People think addiction starts with curiosity or a desire to party. Mine started with fear. Before I used, my anxiety looked like this: constant overthinking, a tight chest for no reason, feeling scared around people, and just feeling different from everyone else. I always felt like something was wrong with me, like I was unsafe in my own body. I felt disconnected, embarrassed to ask for help, and like I didn't belong anywhere. And this is really important. I didn't have the words anxiety or panic disorder back then. It was just this feeling that something was deeply wrong with me. I felt like a defective human being, and the worst part, I hid everything. As kids or teenagers, we learn to hide our fear. We learn to smile through the panic. We pretend we're okay because we don't want to look weak, so that anxiety just grows quietly inside you. It builds and builds until it becomes your personality, your identity, your whole emotional world. I didn't need drugs to have anxiety. I had anxiety long before drugs ever existed in my life. The first time I used anything, it wasn't about getting high. It wasn't about escaping reality or partying. It was about relief for the first time in my entire life. My chest loosened, my thoughts slowed down, my mind finally went quiet, and my body relaxed. The world didn't feel so terrifying anymore. I felt comfortable around people. I felt confident. I felt normal. Normal. That was the real drug, not the substance itself. It was the feeling of finally being like everyone else. People so often misunderstand addiction. We don't chase the high. We chase the feelings we never had. Safety, calm, belonging, confidence, silence, and relief. That was the hook. That was the trap. The anxiety I had before I started using created the perfect doorway to addiction. Most people think substances kill anxiety. That's wrong. They just bury it. They bury it for a few hours, maybe a few days. But underneath the surface, the anxiety is growing, both quietly and violently. During my addiction, my anxiety completely transformed. It turned into paranoia, fear of withdrawal, fear of running out of my supply, and fear of being caught. I was terrified of losing control. I'd have panic attacks during hangovers and experience night terrors. I was emotionally numb but also massively insecure. The more I used, the more anxious I became. But the biggest lie addiction tells you is this: just one more time, then you'll be okay. But that moment never comes, the anxiety. Before I used was pure, innocent, and confused. The anxiety during my addiction was chaotic, messy, and aggressive, but none of that even compared to what came after. Everyone talks about the physical withdrawal, but almost no one talks about the emotional withdrawal. When you quit, the anxiety comes back like a monster you thought was dead, and it's so much worse. Why? Because now your numbing tool is gone, your brain has no way to regulate itself, your emotions come back like a flood, your nervous system is damaged, and all your past trauma starts to resurface. There's no escape. You feel everything at 100% intensity. You don't trust your own body, and life itself feels terrifying. The anxiety after quitting feels like panic for no reason, a racing heart, a tight chest, and a constant fear of dying or losing control. You're afraid of relapsing, afraid of feeling your own emotions, afraid of silence, and even afraid of yourself. It's louder, heavier, and more violent because now it's raw, unfiltered, and unnumbed. This is the part nobody prepares you for. People think quitting will end the anxiety. But sometimes quitting just exposes the anxiety that caused the addiction in the first place. Let's break this down clearly. The anxiety I had before using was innocent, silent, and misunderstood. It was confusing, mostly emotional, and internal. It was rooted in my childhood and unprocessed fear. It whispered, "You're not safe." But the anxiety after quitting? It was violent, intense, physical, and overwhelming. It was connected to trauma, withdrawal, loss, and my own identity. It screamed, "You're dying." It's the same emotion, but a completely different monster. The anxiety before using is like a shadow following you. The anxiety after quitting is like a fire burning inside you. One makes you feel broken, The other makes you feel terrified, but both come from the same place, a nervous system that never truly knew safety. This is something people don't talk about enough. The anxiety after quitting is stronger for a few key reasons. First, your brain chemistry is healing. Your levels of dopamine, serotonin, and GABA have been damaged, and healing hurts. Second, you're feeling emotions you've never felt sober before, and that's overwhelming. Third, you have real responsibilities now: family, work, the future, and that's scary. You're also older now, and life just feels heavier. Your entire survival identity is collapsing. The old you is gone, and the new one isn't built yet. Trauma resurfaces when the numbness ends, and your childhood can come back in waves. And most importantly, you no longer have an off switch. You have to face life with no escape. The anxiety changes because you are changing. I didn't beat anxiety. I learned to understand it. Here's how I started to heal both types. First, I stopped judging myself for feeling fear. I realized anxiety wasn't weakness. It was my body's way of trying to protect me. I focused on my nervous system recovery through things like breathwork, grounding exercises, waking up slowly, and creating daily routines. Therapy and medication also helped stabilize my brain, and there is no shame in that. It's about survival. I learned to actually feel my emotions instead of escaping them. No more running. I slowly rebuilt my identity, not as the addict or the anxious one, but as a warrior. And I accepted that healing is not a finish line. It's a lifelong practice. The anxiety I had before using and the anxiety I had after quitting were two completely different experiences. One came from my childhood, the other came from trauma, withdrawal, and a complete emotional rebirth. But both were part of my story, both shaped who I am today, and both taught me something powerful. If you're struggling before you've ever used anything, I understand. If you're struggling after quitting, I understand even more. You're not broken, you're becoming someone new. Subscribe for daily videos on anxiety, trauma, addiction recovery, and long-term healing. You can also download your free workbook at freefromaddiction.net. Your anxiety is not your enemy. It's the map to your healing.